hey, hello, and welcome to the 6th episode of my knitting podcast. If you're new here, my name is Claire and I like to make things. So if you're interested in knitting and yarn stuff, please keep on watching. I haven't posted a knitting podcast in quite a while. If you've been here in the past couple of weeks, you might have noticed that I've been in a little bit of a knitting slump. But I'm happy to report that I think I'm fully out of that now, and I've cast on a bunch of new things in the past couple of weeks that I'm really excited to show you all. So today I have one finished object and 5 whips to talk about. Without further ado, let's just jump right in with the only finished object I have, which is what I'm wearing. So this is the Maggie cardigan by PetiteKnit. It's a short-sleeved cardigan, as you can tell. I'm honestly not sure what this type of construction is called, but basically you cast on for the back, pick up for the front, but then you kind of join everything together and start doing raglan increases, which I think gives a really nice fit. It fits very closely to the body, so this is a really nice fitted garment. And I think it's super comfortable. It has a great fit as per usual with PetiteKnit patterns. I feel like they mostly have a good fit. So yeah, I'm really happy with this. Now for the yarn, I used a bunch of different yarns because this was a scrap project. If you want to know a little bit more details about it, I do have a project vlog of me making it. And I also have a Ravelry page with all of the yarns listed out. But just to go through them really quickly, for the fingering weight yarn that I used, I held 2 strands together, one fingering, one mohair. There's so many yarns in this that I really have to think about what I used. But I think I'm just gonna go through all the colors. So the yellow is Sandnesgarn Tin Peer Gint in the color Moonstone. The white is Langjärns Jawohl in white. Then the light blue is Panayegi Satin Merino in the light blue colorway. Then I used Rico Design Baby Merino in this lavender purple color, and I used Drops Flora for the pink colorway. And then I held that with 1 strand of mohair, which the yellow mohair is Sandnesgarn Tin Silk mohair, again in the color Moonstone. Then I used the white colorway of the Rico Design, I think it's called something like Essentials Super Kid mohair or something similar to that. And then the pink and the blue were both Drops Kid Silk in, I think, the colorway Pink and Blue Mist. So all of these were leftovers from other projects or just one-off skeins that I had that I didn't have any plans for. Used all of them together to create this stripy version, and I really love it. I've been wearing it quite a bit. I do think that because of the mohair, it's a little bit too hot right now because it's been like 25 to 30 degrees where I live. But for kind of cooler summer days or maybe spring, I think this is perfect. So when it's around maybe 20 degrees outside, this is perfect, or just for slightly colder summer nights. I really love this. Is there anything else? Right, I did knit this a little bit smaller, so my gauge was off. My gauge has been off a lot lately, but yeah, my gauge is a little bit off. So this has 0 to 2 centimeters of positive ease on me, which is not intended, but I think I really like the fit. And I did add one modification after ending the project vlog, which is that I added a piece of, what is it called? Elastic. I added elastic to the neckline, which was actually the first time that I did that, but I think it worked out really well because before it was very gapey here, but I think now it fits much, much better. When I'm not wearing it, it looks really weird and scrunched up, but when I put it on, it looks great, so I don't really mind it. So that is all of my finished projects. But let's just jump right into all the whips, which is the actually exciting part to talk about. This one I finished so many weeks ago that it's kind of in the back of my mind again already. So I'm really excited to talk about all my whips next. I think I'm gonna go in chronological order of cast on. So let's start with the first one, which this one actually kind of is what broke my knitting slump, I think. A couple of weeks ago, I went home and the only yarn that I took was this, which is the Garn Tin Line in, I think the colorway is something called, oh my god, Brombeer cream. I don't speak Danish. I think it's Danish. Oh god. It's called raspberry cream in translation. I will put the number of the colorway in the description or somewhere on the screen. And it's this beautiful red. I don't know if the camera is gonna pick it up properly, but it's this beautiful pinkish red, and I absolutely fell in love with this. And it was on sale, so I couldn't resist, and I got this, and I didn't have a plan for what to do with it. So I only took this yarn home with me, and I really did not knit a lot, but I decided to finally, oh god, I'm sorry, the needles are so clinky. I finally decided to do what I've been saying for the past 6 months, which is design something myself just for the fun of it. Not really to make a pattern out of it, but just for myself to be creative. And I think that really helped with my knitting slump. So I did, full disclosure, have to knit all of this like twice because I kept unraveling and doing something again and unraveling again. But what I've come up with so far is this. I think I have it the wrong way around. So this is just gonna be a little square neck top, and I think I'm now at a point where it should get easier because I figured out most of the shaping, which honestly there's not a lot of shaping, but considering I've never done it, it was surprisingly difficult. So I have this really nice cable design that I love. I absolutely love cabling, especially with really thin yarns. I think it just looks so fancy and so luxurious and cool. And I also just love knitting cables because I really like something with interest where I'm not just knitting stockinette. And then as a little cute detail, I added one bigger cable on top of the shoulders. Other than that, I've just done a square neckline, and this is the point to which I've knit. I think next I will have to figure out the armhole shaping, and I'm also gonna add finishings, so this will not be a raw edge, but I felt like, I'm gonna figure that out once I get there. This is definitely a labor of love because I'm knitting it on 3mm needles with all the cables, and it's really thin yarn, and I have to figure out all the shaping, so it definitely takes a lot more brain power to knit on this, but I've been having a lot of fun with it. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to be able to finish this in time to wear this summer, but I don't really care because it's just super fun to knit on it and figure out how to do it. And I also know that I can make exactly what I want. I mean, you can always change patterns to be exactly the way you want it, but just making something from scratch feels so cool. Like, I just made this. This was in my mind and then I just made it into existence. Like, that's so cool. So yeah, this is my first whip. It's a very slow progress, but I'm really enjoying it. Let's jump into the second one, which I actually have something to talk about. So in my last podcast episode, I had 2 whips, right? I had this Maggie cardigan, and then my second whip was a clematis sweater by Emma Maya, which I was knitting out of black cotton merino, and that's what you're looking at right now. So that project I put down because I was the gauge was off, and after a while I just stopped feeling it. I put it down, didn't really work on it, and then I really wanted to knit a second storm sweater. So I ended up frogging the clematis sweater that I had started and using the same yarn to make a storm sweater. So let me show you how much I've knit on that. I've come quite far, I would say. I'm not sure if I'm holding this. No, it's this way. So I'm making a storm sweater by PetiteKnit again. I've made this pattern before about a year ago. It was actually my second sweater that I ever knit, and I knit a off-white version that I wore to death in the winter. So I decided to make a second version. I love this pattern. It's a all-over textured knit. It's a drop shoulder sweater, so I love knitting all the texture. It's only knits and purls, so I think it's pretty beginner friendly because you're only knitting and purling, you're not cabling or anything, but it still gives the finished object a lot of interest. And I also love the fit of just a good, nice, oversized drop shoulder sweater. So I thought, what better thing than having a black version of this? Then I have a white and a black, super basic sweater, and it's so much fun to knit. This time I'm using the Drops Cotton Merino, which is a DK Superwash Cotton Merino yarn. I think it's a 50-50 blend, and I'm using the colorway black. I do think this yarn is a little bit pilly, so I'm a little bit worried about the wear on it, but I don't know. I think I'll just have to see how well it wears in the end. I joined for the body, knit a little bit until my yarn ball ran out, and now I'm knitting the neckline first because I'm gonna have to play yarn chicken. Because this yarn was intended for a different project, I bought a different amount of yarn. Then I wanted to make the clematis sweater. I bought one extra ball. But now for the storm sweater, I'm probably gonna be another ball short. However, I really hate ordering just one ball of yarn, especially because the drops yarn is so affordable. I would be paying more for the shipping than for the yarn itself. So I haven't really figured out what to do with that yet. I might have to wait until I buy other yarn to get this, because I just refuse to order a single ball of this yarn. But I still have some ways to go anyway, and I think I'm gonna try to just knit the sleeves first to see how far I get with the yarn that I do have. And I don't know, maybe I'll get away with what I have and just make it cropped, but I don't know if I want it super cropped. So we'll just have to wait, trust the process, and the worst case is I have to do the ribbing with yarn in a different dye lot, but I don't really mind that. I think if it's only like the ribbing or something, it should be fine and not too noticeable, hopefully. But yeah, this is super fun and basically my first fall knit. I do think you can wear it in summer, but it's definitely a little bit heavier, so yeah. Getting ready for fall with my second whip. My third whip is actually also kind of more of a fall knit, I would say, because they are really thick colorwork socks. These are the, oh god. I poked a different stitch, oh no. Anyway, so these are the Hollingbourne socks. I actually don't know the designer's name right now because this is actually from the 52 Weeks of Socks book, and I have a bad habit of not looking at the designer's names if I'm just flipping through the book to choose what to knit next, but I'll put it somewhere here. These are all over colorwork socks, which is actually the first time I'm knitting proper colorwork. I did start knitting these, I want to say 2 years ago almost, maybe a year and a half ago in the winter of 22, but I didn't know that colorwork becomes really much smaller than if you just knit stockinette. So these ended up way too small and I only did like half of a pattern, realized it would not fit and just pulled it apart again. And then I was too frustrated to ever knit colorwork again, up until now, where I really just suddenly had the urge to try it out. And I knit most of this while watching the Olympics, which was really enjoyable. I watched surfing and gymnastics while knitting these. I think this time it went really well. I did think like, oh my god, this is way too many stitches, but these fit perfectly. I think it's just the color work and I need to get used to having that many stitches when you do color work. But I think the pattern is really pretty. The yarn I'm using is Regia 4-ply in this Bordeaux color. And then my contrast color is Typical Bliss Homemade Glitter. This is from her 2022 Advent collection, and it's a Stellina sock yarn, so it's sparkled, and I really like it. So yeah, this is my contrast color. I don't really have much else to say about this. This is slower but steady progress, and I'm hoping to finish these by the time it actually gets cold. I've been really into knitting socks again. After not knitting any socks for forever, I suddenly started knitting a lot of socks again. So pretty much immediately after, I cast on another pair of socks. I've had this yarn in stash for about a year because I was planning a project with them, but it didn't really work out. And if you've been on the internet in any similar place to me, you've probably seen and heard of BRAT Summer, which comes from the BRAT album by Charlie XCX that she released a couple of months ago. I don't even know when, but this year. And I decided, you know what, let's just make BRAT socks. I'm not committed enough to make like an entire BRAT sweater like some other people, but because I had this yarn anyway, I thought, why not use it for this? Have fun. Just a cute little pair of summer socks, because I only have one ball of this anyway. These will be pretty short. And then I made BRAT, just the word BRAT in color work, with the contrast color being Star Girl, again by Typical Bliss or Tiffany Liu, and this is also from her Advent 22 collection. I only have a little bit left over, so I thought this would be perfect for this. I just made a little chart on Stitch Fiddle, and I have the word 3 times for the sock. Does that make sense? Like it says BRAT 3 times all around. Other than that, I'm not using a pattern, I'm just doing a vanilla sock. I'm using 60 stitches for the normal sock, and then for the color work, I went up to 72 stitches, and then I just decreased down again. Yeah, other than that, I don't really have much to say. This is just gonna be a little bit boring now, knitting just the stockinette for the vanilla sock, but I'm really excited to have these. And it's really fun because they're so bright colors. I would never knit a sweater or something out of these bright colors, but for little accessories like this, I think it's just super fun to work with screaming colors. Now we're already on to the last project, which I actually cast on last night, and that is the Heartless top by midsummerknits. This pattern I have been waiting for probably 6 months. She posted about it quite a while back. She didn't really intend to make a pattern at first, but then there was such a positive response to it that she decided to make a pattern, which went into testing, I want to say in the beginning of the year. And then she got really busy and didn't post the pattern for quite a while. But last night it was finally released, and I was so excited that I immediately bought it and cast it on. I've also had this yarn for half a year. I bought this after the winter semester ended as like a little treat. And ever since then, it's just been lying in my closet waiting to be knit up. So this definitely does not look like much yet, but just so you can see the yarns together, I think this looks really nice. I'm using this Knit Pro Symphony Terra yarn in the color Summer Romance. It is this green and pink and then a little bit of blue and white variegated yarn, which is so pretty. It really reminds me of that one Monet painting. All the colorways, I really love it. This is a sock yarn, so it has 380 meters to 100 grams, and I only have one skein of it. So I am playing a little bit of yarn chicken with this, but I'm hoping it'll work out, and worst case, I can buy more, I guess. But I think it should be fine. I'm pretty short and I'm knitting the second size, so I think I should be able to get away with it. And then the yarn that I'm holding with it, because the pattern calls for a DK yarn, is Concept by Katya Atenea. I actually don't know the fiber content off the top of my head. I think it's a wool cotton alpaca blend or viscose. It's definitely wool and cotton mixed, but if you can tell, oh god, it's this like super fluffy, no, I think it has cashmere, a little bit of cashmere in it, which gives it this, oh my god, that's a hair, I'm so sorry, that's gross. Which gives it this super fluffy look, and it also feels super soft. If you are someone who wants to try fluffy yarn but mohair is too itchy, I definitely recommend looking into it. I find it much softer, honestly, than mohair, and while I haven't made anything out of it, I haven't worn it on skin yet, I do think it might be worth looking into if you can't wear mohair. I actually hadn't ever heard of this yarn, but my local yarn store carries it. So when I was just looking around, I found both of these at my local yarn store and decided to get them to hold together. No, actually I think I bought them at different times. I bought this first and then I looked for something to hold with it, and I found this at the local yarn store, and I think it's, yeah, it just feels so nice, and it makes it for a really thick and fluffy fabric. I do think that this might be too warm to wear for summer, but for transitional seasons, so spring and fall, I think this will be perfect. So I'm hoping to get this ready in time for maybe September-ish, when it's not super cold yet, but definitely getting colder, and then just wearing a cute little cardigan over it. I think this will be really nice. I did actually not do a gauge swatch for this, because the first part that you knit is just straight stockinette anyway. I decided to just use this as my gauge swatch, because usually when I gauge swatch, they're just this big anyway, because I'm too lazy, which I know it's not big enough for a gauge swatch because you can't really tell, and then my gauge is always off, so I decided to just skip the gauge swatch altogether and use basically the first part of the project as a big gauge swatch as is. Yeah, we'll see how that turns out for me. In terms of needles, it suggests using 3.75 mil needles, which I don't own. So I decided to size up to 4 millimeter needles, because I've been having trouble knitting things too small, even gauge swatching. Everything's ended up a little bit smaller than it was supposed to. So I decided that for something that fits tight like this, it's better if it's a bit too big rather than too small. So yeah, I sized up needles, and then also the size that I'm making, I'm on the lower end of the spectrum for the size. So I hope that this should be fine, even if it ends up being a little bit too tight. But so far, my gauge is actually fine. My gauge is on. I haven't blocked it yet, but yeah, so far we're doing good. I'm really excited to keep working on this, because yeah, I've been waiting for this pattern for so long, and actually I reposted this. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, I reposted her release thingy onto my story, and she actually reacted. That was so sweet. She commented on that, and yeah, I was so happy. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like I just sped through all of that a little bit, but yeah, those are all of the whips that I'm working on right now. I'm super excited. Other updates, in case you've watched my inspo board video, it did in fact fall off. I just stuck it up onto the wall just for this video, but I do feel like it's gonna fall off again, so I actually have to figure out another way to get this to stick to my wall. Other than that, I've been really busy in the past week, so I had exams, and during that time I was actually knitting quite a lot. It definitely calms me down to knit in the evenings after studying, so I was knitting a lot and watching the Olympics and everything. But then in the past week, I started kind of a clinical elective or clerkship, basically. I'm just working in the hospital full time and I'm tired. It's only been a week, but because of that, I just haven't been able to knit most of the week. Like legit, from Monday to like Thursday, all I did was knit like the cuff of my BRAT socks basically. And I was really sad because I'm so excited about all of these projects, but I wasn't making any progress. But you know, that's just life sometimes. I have 3 more weeks of this left, so I predict to be very busy in the next 3 weeks. I was also planning on uploading a very different video this week, but I didn't have time to edit it. So I'm gonna try to get that up next week. And yeah, I don't know. It's not bad. It's kind of okay. The clerkship, it's definitely interesting. I'm learning a lot, but it's definitely also very tiring. But you know, that's med student life, I'm afraid. But yeah, I was most of the days I was so tired when I got home, and also I'm in surgery, so I have to like hold stuff and my arms were hurting so bad that I couldn't really knit, or at least I didn't feel like knitting at night because I just couldn't concentrate and my arms were hurting. So yeah, I predict that is gonna be a little bit, the next few weeks are gonna be a little bit rough, but I'm trying to knit yeah, on the weekends and everything. I do as much as I can because it does help me de-stress, but yeah, that's just life sometimes, you know? As always, I will leave a link to all of the patterns that I talked about down in the description below. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found some inspiration. Let me know what you're knitting on right now. And if you're still knitting for summer or if you're already starting to knit for fall. I think the things that I've cast on, these are going to be my last summer projects, which looking at them, most of them aren't even summer projects. But I think after this, everything starting from here will be transitioning into fall and winter knitting. If you did enjoy this video, I would love for you to leave a like. If you want to see more like this, maybe even consider subscribing. Thank you so much for watching and spending time with me, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye! Oh, I need a thumbnail.